For those listening in, we've got our little boy falling asleep on the floor.
Yeah, it's pretty cute.
Very good.
I mean, people are entitled to their sexual proclivities. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time on it. But I ain't spending any time on it. Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom. But I ain't spending any time on it.
All right, welcome back to Shouldn'ta Come, everybody. We're on the second episode of our series on Adam Bandt and the Greens in general. Where did we leave off last week, if you remember, Karen?
Yeah, I think last week we left off. Adam was a Greens rep.
Yep.
And we had Di Natale in the Senate. And we also had Bob Brown.
Yeah.
And they just signed that deal with Labour with that great photo where everybody's kind of like, oop, ulterior motives.
Yes, exactly. And we're going to pick up from where we left off with, Adam in the house and such. But we're going to start in a slightly different place.
Okay.
In a slightly different time. It's April Fool's Day, 2012.
Oh, okay.
And Bob Brown, the leader of the Greens, is in Dakar, Senegal.
Why is he there?
For the 3rd Global Greens Congress.
Oh,
yeah.
A Global Greens Conference.
Yes.
I didn't know that was such a thing.
It's fairly new. So the Global Greens movement was born out of people doing what they could where they were, and Bob comes out of that tradition.
Okay.
So during his 20s, he was a Canberra hospital doctor, refusing to certify draftees for the Vietnam War.
Oh, shit. Get it, Bob.
Yeah, he was part of Australia's first Green Party in Tasmania. He was the first federal Greens leader. He was the first openly gay Australian MP. And he was the doctor on duty at the hospital when they brought in Jimi Hendrix's body.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, he's led a long life. And
damn, I knew nothing about Bob Brown. What the fuck?
Maybe we'll do an episode one day, but he's not in Parliament anymore, so we'll see. He's led a long life, and though he's never lost his local focus, he's also thinking globally. He talks about establishing a global congress. And fuck it, he's thinking galactic. He addressed his fellow Earthians in an article to warn that other civilizations aren't communicating with Earth. They have extincted themselves. They have come and gone, and now it is our turn.
Wow, okay, that took a sharp turn. He's like, yeah, and the aliens, they fucked up, and it's our turn next, you dumb fuckers.
He knows Father Time.
And we all know Mother Nature.
Yeah.
It's all in the family, but I am of no relation. No matter who's mine, I'm a celebration. Black and white diamonds, fuck.
Segregation.
There we go.
I'm going back in. Okay.
Well, Bob Brown knows that Father Time is slowly coming for him. But he puts it in the way that only Bob Brown kind of can. I have never met a person in whom I did not see myself reflected. Some grew old and died, and I am now part of their ongoing presence on Earth. Others have a youthful vitality, which I have lost and will soon give up altogether. These youngsters will, in turn, keep my candle, and yours, if you are aged like me, a light in the cosmos.
You know I'm a ball till they turn off the field lights.
Damn, he really has an absolute turn of phrase. Like, because he was also the one who was just like, oh, I'm... like, happily intrigued by the political positions of my, 160%.
160. He's a absolute weirdo. But he also knows that this is probably the time for a new career to start.
Fair enough.
The era of a new, oddly charismatic weirdo to manage the incredibly complex web of activism and federal politics that is the Greens. During his week in Dakar, working with essentially kids from all over the world, Bob Brown decides he's going to retire from politics.
Damn. That must be so interesting, actually. If it was he's rocking up to this conference, everybody's 20 years younger, and he's just like, oh, this isn't an old man's game anymore.
Yeah, it's a hardening kind of thing, because he's like, okay, there is a future for this.
Yeah, fair. He's not holding on by the skin of his teeth, being like, all right, we've got to get through it. He's like, perfect.
So something like 700 attendees from, 100-ish countries. It was huge.
Hell yeah.
So the Greens have lost their OG party leader. Australia loses half of our funny-speaking federal bobs.
Damn.
I want every single boy in secondary school in Australia to have a high-powered semi-automatic rifle.
And Christine Milne takes over the mystery McGreen. That leaves Adam Bandt, the hero of our story, to defeat that vile Sarah Hanson-Young and dastardly Scott Ludlam for the deputy leadership position.
Oh, no.
They're not actually the enemies of our story. Just want to be clear. I like Sarah. I think she's cool.
Yeah, I think so too.
The Age describes him as Adam as once an ALP member, and they quote him saying that, unlike other political parties, we have not ripped ourselves apart over a leadership change, hinting at the value of these closed-doors party elections.
Yeah, I mean, you can say some shit and then just be like, yeah, we all agreed and it was super unanimous and everybody is friends here.
Yeah, we decided that we wanted to do it that way. Unlike other political parties, the Greens are also pushing for some serious reform to this country's gambling problem. So, 2012, Australians are losing on average $1,300 a year gambling, which is the most in the world by a fucking long shot.
Money, baby. No risk, no reward.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess gambling is so normalized here, like hitting up the pokies and like sports betting and stuff like that, you know.
It's more than anywhere else by so much that it's a bit of a joke. So I said Australia was first. Who do you reckon's in second?
US.
You're close. UK.
UK, okay.
1,300 for Australia. How much for UK per year?
Well, you said it's quite a big difference.
Yeah.
What, 500?
Less than 400.
Holy fuck.
We are 3 times worse than the next worst.
Holy shit.
And about 6 of every $10 lost gambling at this point is poured into a pokies machine.
Aussie.
It's a way of life. You hit something. Jeremy Barth of Clubs Australia is, gives this amazing quote that I'll send to you.
Oh, yes.
Bang! Hit it, Joe!
We are a nation of gamblers. The first fleet were gambling on the way here from England. Clubs offer quality, affordable entertainment to the family. Over 10 million people choose to be a member. People are voting with their feet.
He, in the same interview, denies that clubs profiteer from addiction.
Then what are they profiting from?
You know, it does raise the question, well, then what?
Well, then how are they making money?
Yeah, this is the kind of nauseating rhetoric that really riles up anti-gambling campaigners. Andrew Wilkie, who's one of the recently elected independent senators, is one of those campaigners like we talked about. Although he was a member of the Greens until 2007, he is now known as an anti-pokies independent. So he's pushing hard for a pre-commitment technology, which would restrict gambling to a special card, and you have to put a maximum amount for your day on the card.
Okay. All right. That seems like a reasonable proposition for, you know,
Yeah, and him,
gambling in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a step, but it's something. And he also wants a cap of $1 on pokey bets. And the Greens are also supporting that one.
Interesting.
Yeah, and since Labour has to get support from at least some of the independents in this hung parliament, and probably the Greens, they have to negotiate or keep Andrew happy long enough to get into government. So they tell Andrew that they are going to do it, the $1 thing in the pre-commitment, and then they don't bring it to Parliament. They add a 250 daily withdrawal limit on casino ATMs instead, which, like, I've seen your family circumvent multiple times.
Yeah.
They trial a system where the pre-commitment technology is per machine, and only in the ACT they do this trial, and the $1 max doesn't get close. No one touches it.
Fucking hell.
In the classic Greens way, Richard Di Natale kind of lays it out bare with the unsaid question of, then why are you bothering hovering over everything? He says, today is a sad day for anyone who believes in social justice in this country. The ordinary battlers that the Labour Party once represented, peoples whose lives are shattered from problem gambling. The question I had to answer was, is it better to have nothing at all, and it's clear they weren't prepared to go any further, or do we accept at least some incremental gain? In the end, it was this or nothing.
Which is so pitiful. Like,
Yeah.
just the crumbs of a
crumbs.
suggestion being
Yes.
like, there you go.
I mean, he's happy about one thing. The establishment of the Gambling Research Institute. Yeah. Yay, I guess.
We did it!
Adam Bandt puts it this way. The Greens will be reluctantly supporting these amendments because it is apparent that it is necessary for the passage of the bill.
Yeah.
We don't want to, but we have to because they won't let it happen otherwise.
Yeah. Just like, hey, we've been strong-armed. Haha.
Yeah. On the ground, though, he is ensuring that whatever conversations that are being had can be tied to his electorate. So he's speaking with people impacted by problem gambling, linking their issues to wider Greens policy suggestions. And it's a nice example of why he's so locally popular, but it doesn't do anything about the gambling.
No.
So I guess we're starting episode 2 where we finished episode 1. Lefty independent politicians working within the system to try and progress material goals, being told nah, being bullied in the media, offered sluggish research bodies and tepid awareness raising instead. And despite that, they still kind of have to throw their support behind the Labour Party due to fear of the alternative.
Yeah, it's really kind of heinous. Like, that's just such... It feels like having to shoot yourself in the foot every K of a marathon that you have to run.
Jesus Christ. Wow, it's 42 times.
Yeah.
Well, I forgot to mention, on the topic of starting and finishing the episode, I forgot to mention Adam's birth charts last time.
Oh,
Yeah,
please,
so-
give me the information.
He was born on March the 11th, 1972, which makes him a Pisces water rat.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I guess 2 swimming rodents.
Wet thing.
He was born on the same day that Carnival Cruise Lines made their first voyage.
No way.
Now the world's largest cruise company known for controversies.
Yay.
Anyway, it'd be unfair to suggest that the Greens didn't achieve anything through their brief dalliance with Labour. In 2012, they got the carbon pricing mechanism passed, and Australia's carbon pollution briefly fell for the only time ever.
Damn.
Yeah, for a couple of years. But these are the halls of power where rats rule and the truth drools all over the carpet, and the Greens get saddled with the stink of having held up climate action by working with the Liberal Party in the media. But forget all of that, because we're about to go somewhere way scummier than the halls of power in the media.
Oh no, where are we going?
It is June the 15th, 2013, and Adam Bandt is doing an AMA on Reddit.
Oh no, not Reddit.
Now, if you don't know what an AMA is, or a Reddit, nice job. It is just an interview where a famous or important person gets asked questions in the comments and they can answer them. Adam is, I think, one of the first to do an AMA, Australian politicians to do an AMA. He might be the second one after Scott Ludlam, but I don't know if there's anyone before them.
Yeah.
And I mean, he does okay. You can kind of see like how popular he is. He answers a lot of questions in detail, and he links to papers and reports and articles. He's in his element. Like, he's an early internet guy.
Yeah,
To
that
get
makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to get high-speed rail, we need to stand up to the powerful interests such as the road lobby and have some long-term vision, something lacking in politics today. He decries the culture of personal attacks over policy debate and question time, and in the news media ecosystem, and he makes it clear that he doesn't support the fluoride in the water inquiry that the North Sydney Greens have started. And doesn't fucking touch the question about would you fight the horse or the duck or whatever. It's fairly quiet for an AMA at the peak of that sub's popularity, but I'd say he does well synthesizing economic justification in language with local issues and gentle sprinklings of personality. The people like him.
Nice. Hell yeah.
Adam does, however, use a little hyphen in the nose in his smiley face emojis.
Oh.
That is suspicious.
It is, and he looks like the kind of guy that would.
Oh, that's mean.
Am I wrong?
No. Although Adam himself is still a rising star, the Greens in government era hasn't looked great to the public. Between staying in Afghanistan, no same-sex marriage, no gambling reform, and the introduction of some rough asylum seeker policies, the potential for the Greens to shift Labour to the left isn't super inspiring. Despite all the initial excitement, there is disquiet in the air as Kevin 013 pulls the chair out from under Julesy to run against Big Tony in 2013. The 2013 election was the big prang of our modern political landscape. We've covered it from 3 perspectives so far.
Sure we have.
But if you've forgotten, everybody piles on Kevin Rudd.
You gotta get it done. To lose in the finals the way that he did, champions don't do that.
He had LeBron and Miami levels of unpopularity and produces a stark result. Tony Abbott and the Liberal coalition get 90 seats. Kevin takes 55, 2 independents, and 1 each to Greens, Palmer, and Katter. The single seat that the Greens won meant that they had the biggest difference between popular support and political representation. So 8.6% of Australians voted for the Greens in the election, but they get 1 seat, which is 0.67% of the seats.
Fuck.
It's the biggest difference. That said, they did lose a couple points overall, and more importantly, their pivotal position in a hung parliament. Liberal just has a majority.
Yeah.
Adam is that 1 seat they win, and he does fucking win the seat. He gets 42 on the first count, with Kath Bowtell from the Labour Party getting 26. Losing twice doesn't get you a Wikipedia page, Kath.
Yeah, fuck off, Kath.
And Sean Armistead. Sean Armistead. Who?
Yeah, fuck you, Sean.
Yeah, he got 23. By the time all the preferences are counted, Adam has a clear majority, 55% in the final result. And his campaign was inspired by Barack Obama.
Vomit on my sweater already. Mom, spaghetti.
Connecting federal Greens policies to the problem of pokies and the concerns of the local African-Australian community.
Yeah, fair enough.
I want to mention this. There are so many candidates in Melbourne. So here is a full list of parties in decreasing order of votes.
Oh, no.
So the Greens, so that's Adam with 36,000.
Yep.
Labour, Liberal, Sex Party, Independent Socialist, so that's the smallest party that got 1,000 votes.
Yep.
Palmer United, Animal Justice, Family First, Kate Borland, Democratic Labour, Bullet Train, Secular, Fraser Kirkman, Stable Population, Australian Independence, that is a party, and Rise Up Australia. And that's Joyce Koo coming last with 165 votes.
Jesus. Yeah, you know what? Melbourne would be the place where it's like, hey, it's just generally kind of like a weirdly political place.
Very. It's what else do they have to do there?
Yeah, you know,
Go
coffee.
to the beach?
Yeah.
Come on. It's a year of crossroads for the Greens to decide what kind of party they're going to be. The Monthly, in a big February 2014 article, put it kind of this way. I'm paraphrasing a bit. The Australian Greens come from three activist traditions: Sydney-based socialists, the Tasmanian Wilderness Movement, and the Nuclear Disarmament Party in WA. But now there are 10 federal members of parliament, and they exist in a world where they can expect to be partners in government, thus need a full suite of policies, and one where a looming biosphere emergency calls for an activist party to lead from the front. Can they do both? So with a chunk of the 2010 Greens voters sliding back to Labour in 2013, the leader, Christine Milne, from the Tasmanian Wilderness tradition, posits a combination of fear of Abbott, leading people to vote Labour for comfort, and too much of a focus from the Greens on parliamentarism over the grassroots activism that gets them where they get.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott Ludlam, who is a Western Australian senator from the anti-nuclear tradition, wants to try aiming at Liberal rather than Labour seats. He also wants to loudly critique the US surveillance state and talk about Julian Assange.
Okay, hell yeah.
And the controversial Sydney socialist-ish Senator Lee Rhiannon, who I unabashedly just fell in love with all of her policies during this research. I love
hell
her.
yeah.
She is loudly arguing that the Greens should re-embrace boycotts of Israel and harder line explicitly socialist policies.
Hell yeah.
Adam's not really from any of those traditions, though he certainly dabbled in all of them. The through line is that Dr. Adam Bandt is an academic, a serious political figure, trying to see Australia like how those two astronauts stuck up in space can. You know they're still there?
I'm sorry, what?
You remember how, like, 8 months ago, it was like there's these two astronauts stuck up there?
Oh, shit. For a second there, I thought you were talking about Neil Armstrong and the other one, and I was like, oh, fresh conspiracy?
Yeah, Neil Armstrong's still in
Buzz
space.
Aldrin?
He's
Yeah,
on there,
hey, they're still up there.
They're still up there.
They're still up there. Yeah, fuck, they're still up there, hey.
Yes, but maybe when this episode comes out, they're back down. But at his election party, Adams, he's standing on a table amid empanadas and steaming bok choy to thank the voters who got him in. Unions, public housing tenants, the African Australian community, and people who, quote, don't want to see election campaigns as a race for the bottom, but instead want to see us reaching for the stars. The Greens will keep alive the light on the hill. That's
Which
nice.
It's very nice. It is.
He's
It's very nice.
He's nice, right? The Monthly's article hedges on their projection of the Greens. In their analysis, the Greens are here to stay, despite the road bumps, but if they want to be taken seriously, they might have to engage in more disruptive politics. Like when Bob Brown yelled at George Bush in 2003.
Shit. Yeah.
Today, Saddam's regime is gone. And no one.
Senator Brown will excuse himself from the House.
Love
I mean,
that.
that's the thing, right? Like, it's nice to be able to, you know, get into that position and, like, in politics and stuff and be representatives and senators and such. But if you end up just, like, playing the game the same way that everybody else plays it, what was the point? What was the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you're coming from that kind of, like, radical side of things.
Yeah.
You know?
Of like the action side of things, the we need to go do something side of things.
Yeah, and then you just go like, ah.
Well, the Monthly kind of asked that question. They ask, how many of those celebrating an Adam Bandt's election victory party would be willing to march, to put their bodies on the line in the name of the biosphere crisis if someone were to lead them there? Perhaps, amid all of the wrangling about constitutional structures, leadership, and protection, it is time for a renewed and more visible militancy.
Yeah.
They're laying it on a little thick there, but I think they consider Adam to be the Greens' best hope to national relevancy.
Yeah, I think probably he is a very good representative that's very palatable, I imagine, to the current status quo, really.
But he still will say disruptive things.
Yeah, you know?
Now, I don't trust in my life anyone who puts a title in front of their name when they don't need to.
Well, fair.
Adam, he's cool in my books. He never brings up his PhD. So, as a fellow Eurasian, I respect him.
Hell yeah.
However, as a former marketing professional, here's some free advice. Dr. Adam Bandt, with a big old thesis and academic rigor and expertise in the machinery of politics, I think that'd be a great figure to galvanize the crowd.
You know?
But it's also not kind of who he is.
Also true. It's like, you could put on this big fancy suit, but like...
He still...
doesn't quite fit right.
He kind of just wants to learn something.
Yeah, God bless.
So, Adam's about to have a baby with Claudia, and when Christine Milne steps down after hearing the ghosts of all the old dead people or whatever Bob Brown said, Adam doesn't contest the leadership. In fact, he resigns as deputy leader to, I assume, raise his children more.
Fair enough. A very reasonable thing to do.
There is a member of parliament whose name means powerful, renowned Christmas warrior. It is Richard Luigi Di Natale.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God.
And he takes over leadership of the National Greens Party. He is in the Bob Brown mold, so he's also a former doctor, and he saw a lot of shit and wanted to fix it. It's very classic Greens. Not the career politicians you tend to see leading the two major parties.
Yeah.
The evil Scott and Larissa share the deputy leadership. Again, they're not actually evil.
Horrendous people. Very evil, very nasty.
2016-ish politics is very messy, evil, and nasty. Not my Greens helping the Liberal Party pass a tax bill.
It's more common than you'd think.
But Adam dives under the wave, to use an Albaneseism. He's home most of the time, and by now, Melbourne is his fucking seat. He increases his first preferences to 44 from 42. And in the two-candidate preferred, he gets 68, relegating Liberals' Lee Liu to a distant second.
Oh, shit. Yeah, he's just like, no, this is my fucking house.
Yeah.
Bullies get bullied, but he's good.
Malcolm Turnbull in the Liberal Party wins federally pretty comfortably with 76 seats, which is the most important right-wing candidate that won an election in 2016 globally.
Yep. No fact-checking.
And the Greens increased their overall percentage of the votes to 10 while holding some reduced power in the crossbench. Things are going okay. All things considered. If a very funny thing hadn't happened, Adam's world might have shifted back to Melbourne, hanging out with his daughters and hitting the ground doing grassroots work during his term. But that's not the country we're from. And as always, we are about to talk what country people are from.
Oh, goodness.
20
Oh, no.
Do you know what's coming?
Yeah, it's a fucking eligibility crisis. God damn it.
2017 reveals, among other scandals, that Greens deputy leader Larissa Waters is still Canadian, and the other deputy leader, Scott Ludlam, is from New Zealand.
Jesus Christ.
Adam Bandt becomes co-deputy leader with Rachel Seward, as the two of them are definitely Australian. And all eyes are on Adam, when he's the only one who votes against expelling the controversial Lee Rhiannon from contentious discussions.
Oh, what's the deal on that?
Yeah, so you'll remember Lee. She's my favorite character.
Yeah,
and she's
yeah.
angry about many things. But right now, it's how much the Di Natale Greens are giving up in negotiations with the Liberal Party.
Fair enough.
Specifically for the public education reforms known as Gonski 2.0.
Ah, Gonski.
The battle over Gonski education reforms has intensified.
Her distribution of a leaflet leads to, per her description, bullying, harassment, and some stalking by journalists. She doubles down, though, and the Greens' rift becomes public. Her quote is, "It is clear that this is not just about how the Greens handled Gonski 2's con job. It is a vicious attempt to destroy my reputation."
Damn. Okay, claws are out and everybody's fighting.
Yeah, she's distributing pamphlets.
Pile on Lee.
Lee Rhiannon is like a 71-year-old woman at this point. Like, I want to be clear, this is not like an intimidating... Like, I think she looks kind of intimidating, but this is like not a scary, throwing their weight around strongman type.
Yeah.
Freaky old Bob Brown calls her actions perfidious.
Oh, God.
What a fucking wanker.
I'm gonna need a definition on perfidia.
All right, let me
Perfiderol.
Let me look up perfidious while we're here.
Thanks.
So perfidious means deceitful and untrustworthy.
Bob Brown really is like that bitch. Like, he's just about to say some weird shit.
All the time. And this is the beginning of the end for the old Sydney socialist. She is going to retire, be pushed out pretty soon, and she uses her last speech to insinuate at the circumstances that led to her removal. She says, "The Greens could have a long and fruitful future, but must remain progressive and democratic. That means resisting careerism, hierarchical control, bullying behaviour, and the associated leaking and backgrounding.
If we fail to stand up to that sort of behaviour, not only will the Greens suffer setbacks, our contributions to building social movements will be reduced."
Yeah, fair enough. That seems like a very reasonable call to action, being like, hey guys, can we just fucking focus?
Yeah.
And not fall into all this bullshit.
Bullshit that the other parties do. That's like part of... That's like when Albanese...
Isn't our ethos that we're not like them?
Yeah, because like when the Labour and Liberal Party are talking about like all the law and the tough stuff in Parliament, they're just talking about, like Ashley describes, careerism, bullying, leaking, backgrounding, and gossip.
Yeah, just nonsense shit.
Yeah. The Greens, though, they don't really do factions. If they did, I guess Lee would be part of the hard left and has a reputation for being a bit abrasive. Adam is also associated with that faction, but...
Well, I mean, you do one, like, Marxist thesis and
exactly. Suddenly you're a Marxist.
Go fuck a goat. Yeah. Why you always telling me to fuck a goat, man?
And he does make his, association with them at least clear by voting to keep her in when everyone else voted to expel her. But everybody seems to say that Adam is the opposite of abrasive. He brings everyone in. He works practically to get things done at all levels. He treats his work and his colleagues with civility. In his book, A History of the Greens, the journalist Paddy Manning described them this way. They are great backbiters, the Greens. They really are. But for what it's worth, never out of Adam and never out of Adam's office. Some members of the public, though, don't agree. And, in fact, he is about to stir up a level of controversy that had me honestly disgusted.
Oh, shit. Okay.
I'm going to read some comments first.
Oh, no.
Be more measured in your social media posts. This is not a public statement. It is a private one. Have a firm word with your social media advisor or hire one if you are in danger of misjudged, Trumpish outbursts like this. Women in the public eye are sexually objectified enough, and you are alienating your progressive support base by contributing to that.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So that is in response to a photo and image that he posted on Instagram in September of 2018. So I will send you the photo.
Oh, God. Okay.
This disgusting, disgusting photo that he's posted.
This is just... Wait, what? This is a pretty normal looking photo for me to look at currently. Adam Bandt, looking a lot more Adam Bandt than the previous photo.
Yes.
So he's on the left and he's smiling and
eyebrows normal.
Eyebrows very normal. He's got some scruff and, changed his glasses up a little. He looks good. And his wife is there. His wife, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, so Claudia?
Yes.
Claudia's there. She's standing on the other side. She's also smiling. Hair up, red lip. Her glasses are quite cool. They've got clear frames. And behind them is a poster of some variety.
Yeah, nice spot.
Of somebody...
It's for what they're at, the event they're at.
Dancing? Is it
Very
dancing?
well done. They're at a Bingara dance theater performance.
Ah, okay, yeah. Cool. Yes, that's the whole photo. Like it's a heads and they're just smiling.
This set off a huge firestorm. Because
why? What the fuck?
Well, this is the caption. With hot wife at Bingara Dance Studios opening night of Dark Emu.
Shut the fuck up. Why are me and Adam Bandt the same?
Remember the media campaigns against Adam Bandt and the Greens?
Yeah.
They pivot for a second as the Herald Sun, Daily Mail, News.com.au, and Daily Telegraph use the literally 4 comments on a Facebook post.
Yeah.
That was all 4 comments on a Facebook post to slam Greens voters.
Nothing better illustrates how joyless the Greens voting, identity politics obsessed crowd is than the recent reaction to Adam Bandt's post. And idiotic Greens voters have slammed their own MP, Adam Bandt, for calling his wife hot.
Suddenly, every mainstream paper loves Adam's right to celebrate his hot wife.
Shut up. Adam Hot Wife Bandt. Sorry, let me try that again.
Adam Hot Wife Bandt.
These publications are absolutely frothing to pile on some random Facebook users because they love Adam Bandt and his hot wife so much. And they respect him so much. So much that they forget to mention their usual complaints about Dark Emu, which is a common punching bag for these media types. Like, they hate Dark Emu.
Yeah.
He's at Dark Emu.
Yeah.
They love to...
But he's got a hot wife and priorities, everybody.
Listen... If a man can't call his wife a hot wife, no, okay.
If a man can't call his wife hot, then what can he do?
So I think this goes to demonstrate that there's not really any way for Adam to, win with social media or with any media.
No.
I would argue also that him and his wife both look hot in the photo.
They both look great.
And Adam is allowed to call a spade a baddie. This is not what politics is built for, though. There are implicit assumptions that underpin the inscrutable rules of Australian political discourse. One of them, for instance, is you can never, ever accuse somebody of being the slightest bit bigoted. And another is that you can never, ever, ever accuse an Australian soldier of hurting anybody. And Adam is about to learn this lesson the hard way, courtesy of Senator Jim Molan, AODSC.
Oh, dear.
Back in 2004, Jim was a major general in the Australian Army. He'd led an extremely distinguished service career and was now in charge of planning the second assault on Fallujah, Iraq. Over 3 weeks of bombing, Molin's Molmen cut off the water, electricity, and aid to the civilian population, which some like the UN argue is already a war crime, and then took over the only unbombed hospital to kick out doctors and patients. The New York Times rationalizes it as an offensive to shut down what officers said was a propaganda weapon for the militants. Fallujah General Hospital with its stream of reports of civilian casualties. A United States colonel admitted to using white phosphorus, which is another big crime if you ask the eggheads at the UN, because it sets fire to people from the inside out for hours until it runs out of oxygen.
Jesus fuck.
Nobody's quite admitted to intentionally killing medical staff, but there is allegations that happened too. Hey, for what it's worth, all of this is exactly what's happening in Gaza and Lebanon, down to the white phosphorus.
Yay.
But if you believe reporting from the time, U.S. snipers shot children and women in the streets, families walking under white flags, photographers, journalists, dying men on the floor of mosques, whoever they wanted, in the process of killing at least 800 civilians. And the leader of this coalition force is Jim Molen.
Yep.
If you believe the linguist and historian Noam Chomsky, the U.S. committed crimes in Fallujah far more severe than the Abu Ghraib torture scandals. If you believe the World Socialist website, the scale and frenzied character of the slaughter had an almost psychotic character to it. The obliteration of the city was designed to terrify the Iraqi population into submission. And if you believe the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights, the entire invasion of Iraq is a war crime.
Yeah.
Based on false premises. As a cherry on top, allegations include the intentional dropping of radioactive materials, which increase the rate of babies born with deformities. A hospital recalls an infant with an eye in the middle of its forehead and another with intestines growing outside of its body.
Jesus fuck.
The New Matilda quotes a source that calls the fallout worse than Hiroshima.
Jesus fucking Christ.
For what it's worth, all of this is exactly what's happening in Gaza and Lebanon, down to the dropping radioactive materials.
Jesus.
But if you ask Jim Molen, Operation Fury was a series of humane surgical missile strikes that unfortunately killed some civilians. But anybody resisting the American occupation was a terrorist, thus illegal by default, and religiously motivated to brutality, and fond of slaughtering innocents. His actions, in his words, represent the rule of law, regardless of the amount of Geneva Conventions that he might have breached. If you ask Anthony Albanese, Jim Dolan was a man of principle, a politician of conviction, who lived his life in service of our country. Peter Dutton described him as a patriot and a decent, honorable man. I call him thankfully fucking dead when I'm writing this, not just because questioning his record was tantamount to treason when he was alive. So Adam knows all of those things I told you about Jim Molen, and his actions in Fallujah, and the illegality of their motivations, and the proving of the lies told by the US, UK, and Australian governments. He has been paying attention, and his opinion on Western involvement in the war is fairly consistent with the typical left viewpoint.
Don't fucking do it.
Yeah, I mean, his exact quote, just have a look at history. Whether you go back a decade or a half, whether it's Australian or other military intervention in the world, it's helped destabilize and create the sort of conditions where groups like IS or Daesh have been able to step into power vacuums and refuel old conflicts in a destabilized environment.
Yeah.
So he probably forgot, Adam, that Australian politics exists in a wonky dimension where, like, rule of law doesn't matter. We're back where we left off in 2018, and Jim Molen has just become a senator thanks to the parliamentary eligibility crisis.
Yay.
We apparently have the self-respect in this country to not elect this kind of monster to parliament,
Jeez.
which Tony Abbott called a tragedy.
Tony Abbott's a fucking tragedy.
Yeah. Yeah, Tony Abbott, come on the show. I want to ask you some questions about how well you can take punches.
Exactly.
So Jim Molen gets backdoored in, and Adam Bandt goes on TV and says if there was a trial about the Iraq war crimes, Jim Molen would probably be up for prosecution.
Yeah, because that's factually correct.
He calls him a coward for sharing discredited videos purporting to show random Muslim violence as justification for virulent Islamophobia from the alt-right neo-fascist Britain First political hate group. And, like, the videos are fake. Videos of violence that's being labeled as Muslims in UK doing violence.
Muslims did this.
So Molen calls Adam Bandt's comments completely untrue, which, no, and that they went against the reputation of the military, which you're kidding yourself. That is the reputation of the military, but whatever.
The fact is that the Aussies came through in a very, very big way.
And Jim Molen also asks Adam Bandt to apologize or risk getting sued, which is that genius military strategist way to solve your problems. It's chapter 4 of The Art of War.
Fuck.
So Adam has no choice but to acquiesce. I'll just get you to read this statement from Adam Bandt's office apologizing to Jim Molen.
So, statement from Adam Bandt. Yesterday, I made statements about Senator Jim Molan on Sky TV. Mr. Molan has stated, I would invite Mr. Bandt to offer me a public apology. If he publicly apologised to me for the statements that he made, then that would end the problem. I hereby apologise for those statements.
I like cunty little Adam Bandt.
Yeah,
He's on great. That's a great apology. Obviously, this kicks off a firestorm. Maurice Payne, the then Minister for War and Exploitation, so Defence, says, that reflection on the service of a senior Australian Army officer takes your lows to depths that I did not think you could plunge.
Fuck off.
In Parliament, she says this.
Fuck off.
The Herald Sun describes Adam's comments as a slur.
A slur?
And as ugly and risky and a drift to the left. And Andrew Bolt...
He just did the fucking Summer Heights High sorry Ben thing. Why are we pissed?
Look at him and say, sorry, Ben. You want to come?
Sorry, Ben!
No, Jonah. Politely and properly apologise to Ben.
There you go.
Chris Lilly's actually going to be a major general in the Australian Army. Andrew Bolt says that Adam is in more strife than he thinks. And Andrew Bolt, unfortunately, is correct because he lives in the wonky dimension where the pillaging of Iraq was heroic. So Molan is deeply disappointed on behalf of all of our fucking boys in uniform or whatever.
Whatever, shut up.
And about the apology. And he wants a better one if Adam doesn't want to be sued. So not even the second in-person apology, which he said thank you for but did not accept, is going to satisfy him. He does so many interviews. Adam has to keep dancing for daddy, issuing an even longer statement in which he apologizes to all soldiers and veterans and their families and their friends and promises to donate to a veterans organization. That's finally enough to satisfy Jim. He describes himself as very satisfied with the apology now.
What a piece of fucking shit. Like, not only do you do, you're a piece of shit before you even start sassing about demanding apologies. Like, you're actually inhuman. Like, you are on a level that, you've sunk to depths I didn't even think you could plunge or whatever.
Fucking Maurice Payne.
But that is just... it's so gross.
Isn't it?
It is just being like, dance, monkey, dance. Yeah. No, dance more. Dance more. Exactly.
Or we'll fucking sue you.
Yeah, I'll ruin your life if you don't. Go and dance some more.
But, it makes me almost why even bother Adam? I just want to give him a hug.
Yeah, he's just like, fuck, I really thought I had it this time, guys.
I really thought that.
You know what? This one I was pissed off about. And then, loaded gun to his head. He's like, God damn it. Fuck.
It's fine. Yeah. He points out that doing internationally recognized war crimes might make you a war criminal, and the entire political, media, and military apparatus of the country mobilize against him. I don't think it's nice to set people's organs on fire while they're alive.
Yeah, usually I think it's better that doesn't happen.
I think that's a bad thing to do even if it wasn't under completely false pretenses. But maybe we shouldn't give those people's awards and platform them in Parliament. But what do I know? The experience seems to have aged Adam a little, but it doesn't impact his popularity on the ground. He outpolls Labour and Liberal combined at the 2019 election to keep his seat of Melbourne. And when Richard Di Natale resigns in 2020, he harnesses that momentum to run unopposed for the leadership of the National Greens Party.
Now all I want is hits, bitch. Wayne signed a fiend.
He wants his leadership to be defined by a Green New Deal style policies. So rather than attempting to discipline existing coal and gas industry through incremental taxation, so making it more expensive to make coal, the carbon tax approach, a Green New Deal asks the government to create, fund, and subsidize the renewable energy sector to see off Australia's reliance on fossil fuels. So we want to make renewable energy rather than make it harder to make coal.
Yeah, trying to incentivize, I suppose, in a very capitalist sense, being what if we push the money in this direction, and then everybody takes that up, and
rather
then
than just
that's beautiful.
To disincentivize the existing system. So he describes the promise of the Green New Deal. With a Green New Deal, we can create new jobs by inspiring a manufacturing renaissance and turning Australia into a renewable energy superpower. We can get dental fully covered under Medicare, and we can make public schools genuinely free.
That sounds great to me. I just had to fucking get antibiotics for a fucking gum infection. So yeah, I'd like free dental.
I like free dental. The Monthly also claims he's gained a reputation for being thin-skinned, which I think is very unfair given what we've just discussed, but okay.
Yeah.
Margaret Simons, who's tasked with writing the first big Bandt profile, asks him if he thinks it was a mistake for the Greens to not work with Labour when Rudd and Turnbull were bashing out their climate legislation. In my opinion, Margaret basically says, thanks to what the Greens did then, we're fucked now. Thoughts, Adam? Here are Adam's thoughts.
Hey, fuck up. What next?
Hey, fucker. You did it wrong. You gonna fix it?
What's the evidence that Abbott wouldn't have run in conjunction with Rupert Murdoch and the fossil fuel industry and Axe the Tax campaign 3 years earlier? What's the evidence that the Labour right wouldn't have torn down another Prime Minister? Oop. There's this mythological alternative history that's been built up by a Labour Party that is attempting to throw Julia Gillard under a bus and totally ignore her legacy. Julia Gillard is going to be able to hold her head up high because she's the only one who's been able to deliver carbon pollution reduction.
Yeah. Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like you're just making up a story. You're making up a story, Labour's making up a story, and they're not considering the rest of the world.
Yeah, he's like, hey, what, proof? Source?
Because I have proof of the other thing happening. He stays hitting in his second AMA that he does. Asked about the brain drain, he says, the government really hates the idea of a well-educated population as it's harder to trick them in an election campaign.
He's right to say so.
On how much money private schools get, he says, the grubby crux of it is that the private school lobby is really good at their jobs.
And he's right to say so.
On capitalism, it's a system that puts profit at its highest goal. What really worries me about capitalism is that it has no limits. There are coal, oil, and gas companies whose business models are literally premised on destroying life as we know it by accelerating the climate crisis.
And he's right to say it.
I would describe this era as like final form Adam Bandt. I can't help myself from wanting to believe in the guy at this point. And with a Liberal government in power, he has more of a mandate to speak than during the Labour era. The first couple of years of the COVID whatever laid bare some of society's inequality, and Adam is on hand to hammer that home in 2021 as the Greens mobilise for the next national election. Class discourse is finally permeating the political mainstream, and Adam heads the only party that can talk about it honestly.
Yeah.
While we were locked down, he says, the billionaires got rich off us. While we tried to stop the climate crisis, the billionaires made it worse. He wants the Greens' messaging to be more ambitious than Labour's, which is, we are on your side.
Stand together. Stand, but 6 feet apart. We stand together. Vote for me.
You are. We are standing 6 feet apart.
Fuck.
So, in his annual report leading up to his first election in charge, Adam says the Greens have two jobs. One, kick the Liberals out as they've taken the country backwards. And two, put the Greens in the balance of power as Labour won't take the country forwards. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Adam is positive that the Greens are going to achieve their goals, and he wants to use the balance of power to create long-term change, to push the government to act on climate, to tax billionaires, to make dental and mental health care free, and to fight for affordable housing. And when May rolls around, his optimism seems to have paid off. So in the election, Adam retains Melbourne, he increases his primary vote further, and the Greens surge to a new level of national prominence. They get 3 more seats in the House, so 4 in total, although Labour is able to squeak through a majority. Their 3 more seats in the Senate are more pivotal. That means they have 12 overall, and they really have the balance of power.
Damn.
Adam calls it a green slide, which is fair enough. They get 12.3% of the primary vote with double-digit swings in a few seats.
Fuck yeah.
But there was one specific loss, and it wasn't to a major party, it's not keenly felt, but about a quarter of Teal voters are former Greens voters.
That also tracks.
That's more than the people who are former Liberal voters.
Yeah, that does make sense.
This is according to the Australian election study, and I'm tired of it already, but it's one to look out for. Look at where people move electionsy. Dr. Bandt in somewhat power is, I like him. He pretty quickly gets rid of the Australian flag at his podiums. Bitch-ass Albo says he's... Do you want to tell the audience what bitch-ass Albo said, actually?
Desperately, I do, yes. I'm always very proud to stand in front of the Australian flag, and I think anyone who is a member of the Australian Parliament should do so as well. Reconciliation is about bringing people together. Oh my god, you didn't just fucking drop reconciliation and be like, oh, the Australian flag is reconciliation. You dumb bitch, shut up.
Right?
Shut up.
Interestingly, the Australian made their article on that criticism public. Because,
naturally,
has propaganda value. In September of 2022, Queen Lizzie chokes on the big chorizo and passes to the great slavery kingdom in the sky.
Godspeed, Lizzie.
He choked on some chorizo!
By now, Adam is very polished and better at getting his point across without getting fucking sued or whatever. Rest in peace, Queen Elizabeth II. Our thoughts are with her family and all who loved her. Now Australia must move forward. We need a treaty with First Nations people and we need to become a republic.
Yeah.
Yeah, he leaves it to Marine Faruqi to say she cannot mourn the leader of a racist empire, which I think Adam knows is like true, but also is the kind of thing that leaders aren't allowed to say.
Exactly. He's like, okay, I've got the boss hat on right now. So it's like, yeah, I'm not going to chastise anybody if they want to express their opinions. I just know that I can't say the thing.
But Marine does, and despite this, Matt Canavan tells Adam to take a hike and don't look back.
Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
Dutton and Albanese obviously fall in line, calling Lizzie a rare and reassuring constant who lived an extraordinary life. Whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy that she owned so many people.
Fucking, let's talk about Kenya.
Between 160,000 and 320,000 Africans were interned in detention camps, also known as concentration camps.
Adam is popular with the people, though.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter what Albo and Dutton and fucking Matt Caravan think of him.
Yeah, fuck you, Caravan.
In his third AMA, he does a few.
Damn, he really is on Reddit like that.
He really is on Reddit
Damn
like
it,
that.
Adam.
He details his improve and pass approach to negotiations with the major parties. He wants higher taxes on billionaires and corporations, fully funded dental and mental health on Medicare, building 1 million homes, wiping student death, free child...
Wiping no students will ever die.
Wiping student death, sorry.
Study and live.
Free childcare and raising income support above the poverty line. Adam gets updoots for days. He wants to stop the 114 planned coal and gas products, and the only controversial question he gets into is about specifics regarding the implementation of reconciliation and treaty in the voice.
Fair enough.
So it's very much like two people who agree discussing how to get there. And that's the only controversy.
And that's where there's, there's the friction of like, but what about this?
And that's probably the last moment that we're going to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to end the episode here with some hope, as if it's right after 2022. ScoMo was gone and we're going to get climate action and dental and childcare and housing action. I was already so furious writing about Jim Molan, but this just made me sad knowing that Adam, our buddy Adam, is about to hit every concrete ceiling, especially when it comes to climate policy.
Fuck.
So welcome to Albo Forever Part 4.
Fuck me.
And I'm proud of what we've achieved in our first year.
So the Greens control the balance of power in the Senate, and the Labour Party controls the House of Representatives. Bills, so any law that the government wants to pass, goes through the House of Representatives first, and Labour has a majority, so they can pretty much pass anything. And then, to become law, the Senate also has to approve it. In theory, if Labour puts through progressive climate legislation in the House, they can get it through the Senate with the help of the Greens and make it law. That being said, if they put conservative climate legislation through the House, they can get it through the Senate with the help of the Liberal Party and make it law.
Right, so they can just fucking go however in terms of climate, because either way they're going to have somebody on their side being like, yay or nay, theoretically.
The thing about having the balance of power between major parties is that the major party that no longer has they also have the balance of power.
Yeah.
They now have it too, which means they can wield it in an obstructionary sense as well.
Yeah.
Shortly before the election, Adam indicates that the Greens' preference is to pass the climate bill proposed by Albo. You can see episode 3 of the Albo series for a longer discussion, but basically it's an insufficient reduction of 43% with no meaningful mechanism to enforce it. Adam wants more, but wants to come to the table with Labour. In August of 2022, shortly after the election, the Greens announced that they'll pass the 43% bill if it comes through the Senate, so it goes through the House of Representatives. Despite finding it untenable ultimately, he's striking an optimistic tone as to the potential for improvements. This is round 1. There's 3 years of this parliament, and we will push to stop opening coal and gas. He's one of many people pointing out the lack of any enforcement for the 43% target, and he views that target as a floor. Hopefully, we can ratchet it up further, more reduction. A month later, it comes out that Tanya Plibersek, the environment minister, is planning to announce a green Wall Street through the creation of a biodiversity market. That is carbon credits for nature, kind of. Like, if you extinct a species, you can pay for more trout in Lake George or something.
What?
Yeah, if you fuck up biodiversity, you can pay a fine to make The plan has a terrible reputation for inefficiency, corruption, and ineffectiveness.
Because it doesn't make any sense.
A version of it has been tried.
Because it doesn't make any
it's
sense.
Bullshit. And in the same way that the carbon tax is bullshit. But a version has been tried in New South Wales fairly unsuccessfully.
Yeah, no shit.
As 2022 comes to an end, Plibersek formally announces the Nature Positive Plan to reform environmental laws. A draft is published for the Nature Repair Market Bill to incentivize private corporations to make positive environmental changes.
And how will you incentivize them unless you have a law that stops them from doing the fucked shit in the first place?
Yeah, it's roundly criticized by most everybody in environmental left or socialist movements, and it's very similar to previous liberal policy, and the existence of a company that would bother to take advantage of it is questioned. Like, why would a company bother to do this?
Yeah. Because they're not going to... Nothing happens if they don't.
No, nothing happens if they don't.
Nothing happens. So
There's
it's
no
just
reason
like,
to. It's like, would you like to?
No. All right, well, we tried, everybody.
We tried,
we
everyone.
tried really hard, but the companies didn't want to do it.
Adam barely gets time to talk about that because Albanese's government announces in January of 2023 that companies can essentially pay to pretend like they're cutting emissions. This is the safeguard mechanism. And new coal and gas sites will be still allowed to open. Adam calls it greenwashing, gaslighting, and the safeguard mechanism is Labour's reheating of Liberals' climate policy. It is backed by the Business Council and Industry Group of Australia.
No way.
A UN climate expert comes out to criticize it too from Adam's perspective, so, for what it's worth, anyone who knows.
Internationally, people are like, hey, this is shit.
So Labour agrees to add an absolute cap on climate emissions in March. A hit on coal and gas that might block half of 116 new projects. The Greens didn't get the ban on new coal and gas that they wanted, but they do celebrate a win. As Adam says, fracking projects such as the Beetaloo Basin will no longer be feasible due to the cost, and despite Labour acting like the political wing of the coal and gas lobby, the bill will pass. And it goes, 43% emissions and all. With that out of the way, Adam can finally pivot back to the Nature Repair Market Bill. And this one's in Parliament, so I'm going to send you something to read out. He's making a speech about the Green Wall Street plan to save that part of the environment that we're not saving.
God. The first significant environment bill that they have brought in here doesn't put in place strong standards to protect the environment and doesn't deal with the climate crisis, the biggest threat to our precious environment according to the State of the Environment report. What do? They bring in a bill into this place that says, let's turn nature into a market. It's in the title of the bill. The minister went on to say, we want to have a green Wall Street. Well, Wall Street crashed, Minister Plibersek. Why do you want to put protection of our environment into the hands of the stock market, into the hands of speculators, into the hands of people who only exist to make a buck?
Love Adam.
And he's right.
He is. He's
right.
So stupid.
It's just like, hey, when we're already in a risky enough situation as it is, how would you like to gamble on more risk? And
how would you like to introduce speculative environmental destruction?
You know?
He cops a lot of criticism from the Teals on his position. They call it incredibly short-sighted. You'll remember, the Teals love a market. Love a market.
They do love a market.
Adam pops up to criticize a sweetheart deal carved out for Woodside in a tax bill passed by the Labour Coalition, which Dutton agrees to pass if gas approvals can be cut down, making it easier to get them approved. Labour also publishes a gas strategy paper in the intervening months, which relies on carbon capture technology that might one day make gas a cleaner option than coal and thus is perfectly fine to commit to until 2050. Adam says, gas is as dirty as coal, and Labour is restarting the climate wars. Australia is on fire, fueled by coal and gas, and people are sick of Labour's gaslighting. You can't put the fire out while pouring petrol on it.
And he's right to say so. And also, that's fucking insane that they're like, oh, well, maybe one day, I don't know, there'll be a special little vacuum we can put up in the sky and that'll suck all the pollution out.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to put all of our funding into this vacuum that doesn't exist yet. I think that's the best idea for our future.
Well, all of the funding left over after opening new gas.
Yeah, after all the mines that we've built, being like, I think, well, they say fight fire with fire, and so we're going to fight gas pollution with more gas pollution. Smog it up, boys.
He's one of many politicians who show up to a 2-day kayak blockade of the Port of Newcastle in November of 23. The thrust of the blockade is calling for the government to adopt a 75% fossil fuel export tax. Most of the fossil fuels we're mining doesn't even get used in the country, and so a lot of it's not even properly recorded because it's sent overseas.
Fuck me.
The blockade lasts for the agreed upon 30 hours as directed by police, so I question if it's a blockade, but it is also described as Australia's largest act of civil disobedience. So it must have been huge. I don't remember it at all.
I don't have any knowledge of this.
What do you mean?
And I think it's kind of bullshit that you have to negotiate with the cops to have a protest. That's not a protest.
Well, yeah, exactly. At that point, you're just having a dance.
That's just a public gathering.
During the last sitting week of 2023, the Greens waved through the nature repair market, but they do get some of the biodiversity. I think they get the biodiversity offsets completely removed. They claim to have closed a fracking loophole via a water trigger, which they say will be a huge hit on fracking, such as in the Beetaloo Basin. Adam keeps hitting at Labour in his annual report, saying they disappointed the country on climate, talking up renewables while approving 28 new coal and gas projects and lifting emissions. To ring in the new year, the Financial Review calls the Greens and Adam cynical, virtue signaling, and prone to unchecked ideological flights of fancy, and advises Labour to do more to discipline them before they get out of hand because they've already caused so much damage.
How?
I don't know.
How? You won't let him fucking do anything.
Well, he says one suspects Adam Bandt wouldn't recognise a working-class Australian if he ran over one in his EV. It's a scathing line from the very strange article.
You don't know the regular man. You have an electric vehicle.
It's just, like, even the premise that the Australian Financial Review would be giving advice to the Labour Party, that would be advice in good faith. Like, the Australian Financial Review doesn't want the Labour Party to do well, so why would the Labour, like, it's...
No.
Anyway.
Goofy shit.
In February of 2024, Labour sneaks in protection for existing gas projects from future laws through a workers' safety bill. It's basically, like, hidden in there. That would be including projects that are approved but not yet started. So if something's approved, then laws make that thing illegal. They're still going to be allowed to do it.
Okay.
Unsurprisingly, a lot of lobbying by Santos is credited for this. The same month, Labour also proposed fuel efficiency standards for new passenger cars. In theory, any car that would emit more than some number of gas per year would incur a financial penalty to the company. Australia and Russia are the only countries in the OECD that have no fuel efficiency laws at this point. And people are kind of describing, like, yeah, Australia is like a dumping ground for cars that have been ruled illegal in other countries due to fuel efficiency laws.
Fuck me, I didn't know that at all.
So the Greens say that they will pass the vehicle efficiency standards, although they want significantly tighter restrictions. But Labour needs to withdraw their sneaky offshore gas fast-track proposal. The other thing about the... someone's yelling outside. So the other thing about the proposal, Bandt warns, it's that it's a massive power grab by the Resources Minister to allow big gas corporations to bypass environmental protections and First Nations voices. Labour and Liberal agree to not debate the offshore gas bill in Parliament, which means no one else is allowed to debate it as well.
Naturally.
Adam says, Labour and Liberal are now gagging debate on their bill to fast-track new gas projects and take away First Nations rights. Labour then announces a new watered-down fuel efficiency standards, increasing the allowable emissions for all vehicles, and reclassifying a bunch of SUVs as commercial vehicles, which means there's a further increase of what they're allowed. The Greens warn Labour not to count on their support in the Senate if they try to pass it, as any gains from it, already like it's being weakened, any gains from it will be wiped out by the protection for proposed gas sites. So, Labour then walk back their pre-election promise to implement stronger environmental protection laws, though they do propose to create the Environmental Protection Australia Agency and the Environment Information Australia body.
Here's the thing. I don't give a fuck at all about committees, bodies, agencies, any of that shit. What do they do? What do they do? Hey, I thought we'd get like a nice talking circle around and we could think about talking about maybe sort of kind of having an idea of a theory of an implication of a plan, if that sounds good to anybody, or let's have tea instead.
They're going to play drums and sing Kumbaya.
Yeah, so fucking dumb.
So sorry. So they agree to make these agencies, well, they propose to create these agencies, but they push back changing any laws until a later date, which the Greens call a capitulation to polluters, the gossip fuel lobby, and that's probably meant to say fossil fuel lobby. I think that's my fault.
The gossip fuel. They're giving in to gossips.
XOXO. Gossip Girl.
The gossip fuel lobby and logging corporations. But Labour calls it our new nature-positive law reforms. That's a phrase that people are trying to figure out what they mean by.
Yeah.
So early in May, Labour formally launches their new gas strategy, future gas strategy. So they commit to open new gas fields and continuing to export overseas. Bandt says, why should the Greens work with Labour on legislation apparently aimed at cutting pollution, like the fuel efficiency bill, if Labour is then going to reverse any climate gains by fast-tracking new coal and gas projects? He's hit on something with substance. There is a split between the Labour Party, with some members wanting to stop all public investment in gas, especially members in seats where the Greens poll well.
Yeah, funnily enough, they're just like, shit, guys, don't do this.
So less than 2 weeks later, the Greens work with Labour to pass the new weaker fuel efficiency standards and the new petroleum tax, which still preferences Woodside. But in return, they get the sneaky legislation protecting gas projects from future laws in the worker safety bill removed. They don't get that thing removed from being a thing, but just from the bill about worker safety. The petroleum lobby basically lays bare that under the new tax, they'll just change how they report revenue so it doesn't affect them. The motor vehicle lobby welcomes the amendments to the changes. And overseas gas exports stay, tax-free. The profits go to people.
Fuck me.
But Bandt says the Greens have killed Labour's gas fast-track bill. You can't put the fire out by pouring petrol on it. With Labour and Liberal now backing more coal and gas past 2050, only the Greens will fight for real climate action.
Yeah. And anybody saying the Greens have gone and they've wrecked Labour's plans to make us a green utopia, and then, Labour's just turning around, just investing in anything that will kill all of us. It's going to kill every single one of us.
Every single one of us. In November of 2024, when gas emissions remained higher under Albo than they were under ScoMo, Adam continues to ring these alarm bells.
Labor have disappointed the country on climate, talking up renewables while approving 28 new coal and gas projects and lifting emissions. Coal and gas are keeping emissions high, but Labor and Liberal are backing more. Labor has lifted emissions, and Peter Dutton would be even worse. We can't keep voting for the same two parties and expecting a different result on climate. And facts, he's right to say it. He's right to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this same tit-for-tat bullshit two political parties only thing is so unhelpful.
Yeah, especially when they're both captured by industry, but whatever.
Because it's just such a stupid assimilation to one another.
Yeah, that's a good way of, they're just glomming onto each other.
Yeah.
And just dragging everything to the right.
Yeah.
So we have some movement. We have this big crossbench, and the Teals and the Greens and Environment Minister Tanya Plibersek are nearing a positive conclusion on the passage of at least some kind of nature positive bill, whatever that is.
Oh, God. Okay.
Though they obviously want some more concrete climate protection, they are going to settle for increased protection for old growth forests to get it through before the new year, so they can work on something else. That's good. So then Albanese comes out of the shadows to kill it.
Fuck.
Though it had been agreed upon in principle by Pocock, the Greens, and Tanya Plibersek, Albanese did not want to give the Greens a victory. He let the press know that the deal was off before he lets Tanya Plibersek know, to which her office says, wait, we were still negotiating. In fact, I thought it was going well. But what Tanya doesn't know is that Albo had called Adam, Sarah, and David in for a private meeting to make it clear the deal was off.
Dog move.
After all, he'd promised miners that he wouldn't countenance any reform to the quarter-century-old Environmental Protection Act.
What the why does he hate the Greens so much? He's such a fucking baby.
He's such a fucking baby. So, facing accusations of obstructionism, of trying to make perfect the enemy of good, which you hear a lot, the Greens waved through dozens of bills, environment, housing, transparency, whatever, that they'd been trying to tinker with. Adam says, yes, we were pushed hard this year, and pushing the government isn't always pretty, so I accept that. But it was done for a reason, which was to try and get the government to shift in a way that they shifted on Stage 3 tax cuts. We couldn't get there this time. Labour ministers apparently say to some reporters that Albo is largely driven by personal grievances against Tanya Plibersek, dating back to the 2013 leadership spill, but the clandestine rendezvous between the party leaders looms large over the coverage of the situation. When asked about the meeting, Adam thinks it speaks for itself.
I'm just going to stick with what's on the public record. I think it is abundantly clear, though, that the reason we don't have stronger environment laws at the end of this parliament doesn't have anything to do with the Greens or the Environment Minister. It's pretty clear that the logging and mining corporations told Labor not to protect the environment and forests, and Labor did what they were told. Yeah, again, yes. Yeah.
Shortly before Christmas, Adam posts on Instagram that there have been 32 new coal and gas projects approved by Labour since they entered Parliament. It's Archie having a shake. And that climate emissions are higher under Albo than when ScoMo left, and he calls these approvals despicable. In January, contaminated water is pumped onto vegetation at the Beetaloo Basin fracking site.
Fuck's sake.
It's the 16th of January 2025, and Adam Bandt's goal is to stop Dutton, to usher in a golden era of Labour Greens power sharing. The enormity of turning this ship around makes me want to chance it with the Sharks, but Adam keeps trying. Despite a year where the story I told you was repeated across housing, tax, infrastructure, medical care, Adam keeps trying. You can hear Archie in the background talking to our neighbor. Let me just go see what he needs.
No, Archie's actually just he's really taken with the Adam Bandt story. And he's like, I also keep trying every day. I'm just like Adam, I'm trying too.
They're pivoting to the 2025 election, where they're focusing on larger taxes for businesses that they call Robin Hood taxes. The Treasurer Jim Chalmers goes on Sky News to say that they're designed to get attention. The Greens' primary task is to make up numbers and put out press releases. We actually have to run the place.
Shut up, acting as if any of you have jobs. You are all so fucking unemployed.
Jim Chalmers is one of the very few other Australian political figures with a PhD. His PhD was titled Brawler Statesman, Paul Keating and Prime Ministerial Leadership in Australia. He wrote he just glazed Paul Keating and they gave him a PhD.
Fanboy.
He says his favorite artists are Tupac, Biggie, and Nas.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Please accept. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Jim Chalmers said his favorite artists were Biggie, Tupac, and Nas.
Well, his full quote was, it goes Reggie, Jay-Z,
Shut
Tupac,
up!
and Biggie.
I'm gonna kill the environment like a Labour Party member.
It goes Reggie, Jay-Z, Tupac, and Biggie, Andre from Outkast, Jada, Corrupt, Nas, and them.
Jim Chalmers.
Apparently, the Gillard government structure was also planned at Jim Chalmers' wedding.
Shut up.
I swear to God, reading his words and his educational background, I hope Suge Knight takes care of Jim too.
Honestly, hang him out the window. Or is that Diddy?
It's Suge Knight that hung Vanilla Ice out the window.
There
yes.
we go.
Anyway, it's an election year again.
Yay.
I smell bullshit, it must be an election year.
And Adam is up against some interesting local opposition. A former Carlton player, Anthony Koutafides, might be running against him. This isn't a Pocock-Teal situation. A property developer, owner of the largest house in Wyndham, and alleged Ponzi schemer, Intaj Khan, is bankrolling Anthony. A lot of Anthonys in this country. Already failing once at getting him elected to mayor. People on the ground don't really feel it. The Guardian article I read quotes a Victorian Liberal saying something fucking crazy would have to happen for Adam to be gone. But Kutu's got some Showtime experience, Dancing with the Stars, and he's got a pro-business attitude. He wants free coffee for office workers on Mondays to make up for no more work from home ever. I'm going to end this podcast.
Shut up.
With
And you can even have a free coffee, but you will be living in the office, and it's only on Mondays that you'll get the free coffee
from a fucking footy player.
Right? It's like, motherfucker, you ever been in an office before?
On the one
most
hand,
people actually have free coffee already.
That's not actually that hard.
No, like most places I've worked, in fact, almost all places I've worked have had a fucking tin of Moccona or Nescafe, and you just scoop it on into your cup and put some hot water in it.
Some places have an espresso machine.
Some people have an espresso machine.
And I guess, you can't work from home if you're a footy player, but also, yes, you can. All of your training and stuff you can do at home.
Yeah.
You can lift weights at home.
Yeah, you could play some sort of football game.
I'm going to end this podcast, this series on Adam Bandt and the Greens, with a quote from a recent article by the socialist newspaper Red Flag. The strategy of cooperation has failed. Is there a plan B? The Greens' trump card is the ability to block bad legislation. But to do this, they would have to be prepared to weather a storm of indignation from the Labour Party and its backers in the press. They would have to become a genuine opposition. If they continue down the path of capitulating when push comes to shove, many of their supporters may well ask, what is the point of the Greens?
I think that's really fair. And I think they have worked to get this amount of influence in the Senate. this has been something that they've driven towards. Why aren't they using it? Like, I think the thing about politics is you really don't have any friends in politics. Like, not anybody who still thinks the same as you, not anybody that kind of, on its surface, makes sense as an ally. Like, at the end of the day, you're there to represent the interests of the people you represent. And if you're not representing those interests, if you're doing things out of your own self-interest, then this is just stupid nobility shit. This is just princes and kings, and
it's just, instead of princes and kings, it's
yeah.
a bunch of people who went to the University of Sydney in the 80s.
God, and did that one goddamn course.
And did that one fucking political economy course.
You know?
Like that, like just the state of where this country's view of itself and how it works in like the public sphere, in the sphere of like politicians and industry leaders and like rich people, is so at odds with the actuality of the world that the Greens, like, there's a dream world where in the next election the Greens get 75 fucking seats in the House or something.
Could you imagine?
And then they have an actual majority and a real mandate. Or even if the Greens and Teal parties are able to form some kind of coalition.
Yeah.
But anything else, if it's just like, oh, we can stop things, well, they're gonna have the whole media and political ecosystem turned on them, because although the Greens don't have any friends in politics, the Labour Party has one big friend in politics. It's the Liberal Party.
Yeah, they need each other to function. Like,
yeah, they need each other to run against, because at this point, that's all Labour really runs on.
Yeah,
is like Dutton will be worse.
Exactly, and it's just so bullshit. Like, imagine the only testament, like, you're going for a job interview, and the only thing you can say about yourself is that you're not as bad as the other person going for a job interview.
Yeah, imagine
and
how...
it's like, why the fuck should I hire you? Like, why should I hire you? Oh, well, the other guy's worse. What?
If you're...
Why should I hire you?
Well, it just says, like, if you're the company hiring that person in that position, that means you're desperate.
Yeah.
Because no one else wants to do it. And that's not the case. There are so many people who want to progress positive environmental policy.
Yeah.
But just like I think it, that last section kind of proves, like, any inclination Anthony Albanese might have had to socialism or Marxism, it's gone.
Well, it's well dead. I mean, he's got fancy property in Copacabana. And he's got, new hot wife, and he's got a new hot bod, and he's got the arguably, well, not arguably, people argue it, the most powerful position in the country. I disagree. I think probably that's Gina.
Probably Gina, yeah.
But, or Murdoch or someone, like...
It's like the triumvirate...
I don't think Prime Minister really makes the top 5, if I'm being honest.
The Prime Minister is a mouthpiece.
It's like
it's for
Reinhardt,
Gina.
Murdoch, Packer, like...
Yeah, you've got the
come on now.
Resource... Yeah, like, oh, the Greens keep holding up legislation. They don't want to get anything done, making perfect the enemy of good. Like, why aren't we aiming for perfect? Why aren't we aiming for perfect? Why can't we do that? That sounds like a good thing to aim for. Why are we aiming for what this is, which they say is good, but is not even just like better than
Before.
better than Dutton is what they're claiming, but they are worse than ScoMo. So how bad is Dutton going to be then?
And here's the thing, right? I'm sure if Dutton gets in, and if he is able to actually, pull the nuclear thing, like, I mean, will we see more of a fossil fuel reduction under a Liberal Party government than under the Labour Party, who
maybe
ostensibly is like, oh, well, we care about the environment and workers, except fuck unions and fuck not fracking places that are beautiful and clean.
Honestly, like, nuclear is a weird one, because, like, so obviously on the left it's a very contentious issue. I don't like the idea of there being more nuclear things than there have to be, but I'm a dummy. But I imagine Gina also isn't. I don't know what she thinks about nuclear, but it would cut into her profits.
Well, unless she's also got uranium mining on lock.
But I think it's just like less mines, and I think like all the uranium, for instance, we have uranium here, don't we?
We do have uranium here.
Because so we'll end with this terrible fact: all the uranium used to drop the big atomic bombs on Japan was mined by children in the Congo. All right, and that's why we shouldn't have done this. This episode made me sad, to right, everyone. But here's hoping.
You know, what else can you do? Like Adam Bandt, you just have to try and try again, and maybe things will improve, or maybe they won't.
Yeah, and
no way to know until we do it.
If they don't, and more people get fully alienated from the system, any hope of this, upcoming change of the paradigm of the political economy which will have to happen, because this can't stand.
Yeah.
If more and more people are turned away from the system, it will be a more violent turning away from this way of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
See you next week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.